Hi everyone, I'm Cassie. I'm a spiritual coach and a writer. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about why spirituality can be challenging for those of us who have been in a high control or fundamentalist religion, as well as what helps. So, for myself and for many others, embedded in the choice to leave religion is often a deep feeling of betrayal, of being betrayed. Being a part of a fundamentalist or high control religion isn't just something that you casually do on a Sunday. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, so we did it on Saturday. But you get my point, right? You don't just show up for Christmas and Easter Mass and call it a year. You don't just go once a week, typically. There's all sorts of children's activities, church camp, fundraisers, all of these other things you're expected to do in addition to just going to church. So it becomes not just something you do, it becomes very much a way of life. And being part of specifically an evangelical practice means that you don't just go to church multiple times a week and go to all of these other church activities. You also have the responsibility of spreading the gospel to others. So religion becomes more than just a small facet of your identity. It can become your whole identity. It can become a whole way of life. You invest so much of yourself into this faith practice, your time and your energy, also your money. So Mormons, Adventists, and some other denominations, if you're a part of those, you're expected to give 10% of your income to the church via tithe. And churchgoers are often expected to work for free on top of all of that. But what happens when something in your life puts you at odds with some church ideology? Maybe you have a severe illness or death in your family, and you talk to church leadership about it, and you're given a platitude about it all being a part of God's plan. Maybe you have a kid who comes out as queer, and you're told that you need to get them to change or deny that part of themselves, and you don't want to put them through that. You know how much harm that could cause them. Maybe you're a new parent and you're learning everything you can about parenting, and you realize that a lot of the church's parenting strategy is harmful or even considered abusive by some therapists or psychologists. Maybe your church started telling you that you need to vote for far-right political ideology, and you are very opposed to that. And so when you start asking certain questions or challenging those beliefs in any way, you might be received with a cold shoulder. You might be given more of those platitudes, and you might be told to double down on things like prayer, offerings, or confessions. And after some time, you might start to realize that none of those things are really working. They don't change your situation, they don't take away your grief, they don't cover up for the often gaping holes and contradictions in scripture or other doctrine. And after a while, you might start to really feel like that doctrine, those rules and dogma are more important than your humanity. That you might have a realization that at the end of the day, the church doesn't care about or make room for your individual situation or your personal beliefs or the nuance of really complicated things that can happen in our lives. And this can feel incredibly dehumanizing. You might be left in a little bit of a state of shock. Further down the line, this might even develop into something like PTSD because this thing, this church and community that you thought would always be there for you can leave you feeling kind of stranded. You might feel like you're alone in a quote unquote bad or evil or sinful world. And subconsciously, you might feel that trusting outside of yourself equals betrayal. And why wouldn't you feel that way? It's happened to you 100% of the time, right? And so after we leave, we might be in this adjustment period for a while where we start to find our place in the world at large. You'll meet more people. You might be receptive to different ideas. If you're anything like I was when I was younger, you might be very judgmental about some of those ideas as well. But really, you start to become a new version of yourself. And through this process, you might feel a lot of different and complicated feelings like anger. You might have a sense of loneliness. There might be also feelings of relief, like, hey, I have so much more time, money, energy to myself. I don't have to get, a spouse and kids out the door on Sunday morning. There might be relief that comes with that as well. And as we're going on this deconstruction journey, you can start to realize all of these things that were quote unquote wrong with religion, things that were harmful, things that you disagree with. But you might also feel like that loneliness that I mentioned. You might start to miss community. You might crave deeper meaning in your life. These things that church used to give you, there's still a little bit of a void there. You might start to be interested in things that are somewhat spiritual, like yoga. Maybe you buy yourself a tarot set and you feel a little naughty about it. Um, Maybe someone recommends that you try meditation and you try it, but you're like, well, that sounds a little bit like prayer and that makes me a little uncomfortable. Maybe you get connected somehow or find someone online, a teacher, and the way they talk about the universe as their higher power really resonates with you. But maybe one time they use the word God and you have a really strong visceral reaction and you're like, well, maybe that person isn't as in alignment with me as I thought they were. Maybe you're involved in a 12-step program and everyone's talking about relationships with their higher power and you're like, well, that higher power everyone's talking about sounds an awful lot like God. And so when we start to dip our toes into into like the spiritual realms of the world, we might be left with this sort of questioning, like, is all this meditation, the universe, higher power, is all of this just God in a trench coat? We can be left feeling that way. So, what do we do if we're drawn to deeper meaning, to some spiritual practices, to some aspects of that, but we really struggle with it as well? So first of all, something that helps is to find a guide, a mentor, or a friend that you can talk to who understands the religion, or sorry, the damage that religion has done to you in your life. Some people still view this is changing, but some people still view religion as a unilaterally good and helpful and supportive force in your life. And if you're listening to this video, that probably hasn't been the case, at least some of the time, right? If you decide that you want to get professional help, something that can be really supportive is to find a therapist who really understands religious trauma, to find a coach who understands from their own lived experience, like the harm that religion can do. That's why I do the work that I do with my clients because I'm so passionate about offering that support to others because I've been on the receiving end of that support and I know how helpful it can be. If you are watching this video, it's likely you were raised in an evangelical tradition. So when we're raised in that mindset, we can see different beliefs as incompatible. So it's important for us to keep in mind that someone else talking about their beliefs and their worldview, it doesn't undo or replace ours. We were always told that our church, our religion has this one truth, and it's our job to share and proselytize with everyone. A lot of people don't view beliefs or even religion that way. So it requires of us to do some unlearning of that early programming and disentangling talking about beliefs with proselytizing. And this is a reminder you can come back to as often as you'd like, but someone else's different belief isn't a threat to ours. It's just two different people seeing the world and making meaning of the world in very different ways, and that is okay. So I touched on this earlier, but after leaving religion, anything that feels like God or prayer or any sort of directive can be really difficult. So you have full permission to engage with things only as much as you want to. So if a part of that meditation doesn't work for you, you can skip it and rejoin when it feels supportive again. You don't have to do 100% of it if you don't want to. Um, Another thing I would encourage you to do is to talk with other people about, do they have a higher power? If someone believes in God, what does that mean to them? Some Someone else's definition of God might look a lot like my definition of universal consciousness. Even though we use different language for it, we might be talking about kind of basically the same thing. So I would also encourage you to find your word, if you have one, that feels meaningful and supportive to you. And you might get ideas by talking to other people, but really that needs to come from yourself and what is meaningful to you. Something I see a lot with other ex-religious folks is we can focus so much on the religion that we left. And after a while, this means that that religion actually still kind of has a hold over us. That church is still getting your time, your effort, your energy, your focus. You might still be interacting with people from that religion a lot. And if you find yourself in that place for an extended period of time, I would encourage you to ask the question, is that really serving you still? And once you've given it some time and some honest reflection, you might, your answer might be yes, that this actually is serving you. Maybe it is your sacred role to point out the parts of that religion that are problematic. And if so, more power to you. But some people might find that actually, no, I don't want to keep engaging with this religion. And I just kind of feel hooked into um, talking about religion in a way that's a little bit combative and acrimonious. And actually, I'm a little bit addicted to that nervous system response that I get. Um, yeah, so I would encourage you to reflect on that question and give yourself an honest answer. Yeah, and be sure to keep in mind that you don't have to follow someone else's rules or practice. You are your own highest authority. Moving forward in your life, you're the one who gets to choose how you make meaning of the world and of this lifetime. Something that I learned from years of being in trauma healing circles was take the best, leave the rest. So you might resonate with parts of others' work, and some might not resonate with you, and that's totally okay. And you might find meaning in the work that other people do, but no one else can define for you what is meaningful to you. That's something that each of us really has to do for ourselves. So as we go along this path, as we continue to grow in our life and learn more about different possibilities, as we start to give ourselves more permission to decide, to figure out and decide what does or doesn't work for us, we can start to really trust ourselves more. We can feel a greater sense of ease and we can sort of relax into our own avenues that we find deeper meaning in our life. And we'll also be less activated by other people's beliefs. So, the way I'll talk a little bit about how I view religion and spirituality. So, religion works from the outside in. There are these external structures that we're told we have to follow, and it's actually very impersonal. It really has nothing to do with us. We're a little bit of like a cog in that machine, in that framework. The way that I view, the way that I approach spirituality is that it works from the inside out. So it does the inverse of what religion does. It means that we are very, very connected with ourselves, what is true for us, what is alive in our body. To me, that is at the core of spirituality. And remember that you are your own best teacher. You're your own best guide. You might benefit from having another teacher or a guide, but ultimately, that truth comes from within you. And we can take this difficult experience that we had with religion, where it was so controlling and then we felt betrayed. We can take that and turn it into a really embodied experience of freedom and trust in our lives. So I'll end a little bit with a little bit of my perspective and worldview. So I view all of us, you listening to this video, me, my neighbors, everyone here, as a fractal of the earth. And then the earth is a fractal of our universe. And this really beautiful universe that we live in is filled with possibilities, so many unknowns. There are effectively infinite variations of matter and energy. So we don't need to limit ourselves. We are here to explore and play and connect. And instead of feeling confined by the ways that we were harmed by religion, we can take that as an invitation to be even more expansive. So thank you so much for listening. If you connected with this video, please consider subscribing. I'm just starting my channel, so I'll continue to share more in the future. If there's any topic about spirituality or being ex-religious you're interested in, feel free to drop it in the comments. I'd be happy to make a video about it. I'll also share a link to my website if anyone wants to connect further with my work. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.